The Planning Institute of Jamaica, PIOJ, says based on its most recent survey, the prevalence of poverty in Jamaica has plunged to a 34-year record low. Yeah, the PIOJ also says that the economy returned to the growth path, although the number is not impressive, and that where labor is concerned, the unemployment rate continues to be reduced, and youth unemployment especially continues to move in the right direction, which is down. Today, I discuss what the numbers are telling us about the economy with two eminently placed gentlemen on this Thursday edition of Lead Story CVM TV. Well, the Director General of the Planning Institute of Jamaica, PIOJ, Dr. Wayne Henry, held court at a press conference on Wednesday, where he reported on the latest growth numbers, real value added, they call it in their speak. He also touched on the poverty prevalence number and also spoke about the labor situation where unemployment is concerned. He didn't go into detail in that, given that statin really controls that leg of the reporting, but he did, of course, go into detail in terms of the industries that have been performing well enough to lend itself to economic growth of 0.8%. These numbers are doing my head in, because we know what the numbers that an economy moving in the right direction ought to be registering, and we have to settle with these numbers as minuscule as they are. Positive nonetheless, but we seem to be in a never-ending cycle. So what were the highlights of the Director General's presentation to the media on Wednesday?
The Planning Institute of Jamaica, PIOJ, has produced the official poverty prevalence estimates for 2023, computed from the Jamaica Survey of Living Conditions, JSLC data, collected by the Statistical Institute of Jamaica, STATIN. Jamaica's national poverty rate declined from 16.7% in 2021 to 8.2% in 2023. The lowest figure ever recorded since poverty rates were first measured in 1989. The estimate for 2024 will be provided later this year once the JSLC data is received from Statin. As we consider the 2023 results, it is important to highlight a few considerations with respect to methodology. First, no poverty estimate is available for 2022, as the JSLC was not conducted that year due to the initiation of the National Population and Housing Census. Secondly, in 2018, Statin revised the sample design and weighting methodology applied to the JSLC sample. The 2012 to 2017 data have since been revised to account for these changes to facilitate comparability with 2018 and subsequent years. Therefore, data prior to 2012 should not be compared with data for 2012 to 2023. As such, while the trend in poverty reduction remains clear and credible, comparisons across years, particularly with pre-revision estimates, should be interpreted with caution. These adjustments in methodology improve the accuracy of national estimates, but they may affect the strict comparability of data across the full time series. In 2012, poverty in Jamaica was 19.7%. That meant nearly 1 in every 5 Jamaicans was consuming below the poverty line. Poverty rates have since trended downwards, but spiked to 16.7% in 2021, likely reflecting the fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic. The results reflect progress across all regions of the country. In the Greater Kingston Metropolitan Area, GKMA, poverty fell from 10.4% in 2021 to 3% in 2023. While this is a positive development, we observed that there was high variability around this estimate. As such, may be less precise than others. It should therefore be interpreted with some caution. In other urban centers, OUC, the rate declined to 9% from 15.5% in 2021, reversing the upward trend observed since 2018. In rural areas, which historically experienced the highest rates of poverty, the rate dropped from 22.1% to 11.5%. This represents a decline of more than 10 percentage points. Real per capita consumption increased across all income groups, but the greatest improvements were recorded in quintiles 1 and 2, the lowest 40%. In these two quintiles, consumption rose by 12% and 16.6% respectively. In addition to this national decline in poverty, there was a reduction in food poverty, also referred to as extreme poverty. In the Jamaican context, food poverty refers to the inability of a household to afford the minimum daily caloric intake required for good health. In 2023, the food poverty rate fell to 2.8%, down from 5.8% in 2021 and 4% in 2019, marking the lowest level on record. What has driven this performance? 1. By 2023, the country had officially recovered from the shock of COVID-19 and had entered into a new growth phase. The Jamaican economy grew by 2.6%, marking the third consecutive year of economic growth since the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. It is important to note that prior to the pandemic, Jamaica had already embarked on a sustained growth trajectory, recording 7 consecutive years of growth up to 2019. COVID-19 disrupted that path, but we remained committed. Our post-pandemic rebound has been strong. Real value added in 2023 surpassed 2019 levels, confirming a full recovery and new forward momentum.
Highlights of Dr. Wayne Henry's presentation after the break. Wayne Chen and Damian King.
Room. Only a grand for a grand time.
That I know me. We never said that. But who going believe me?
That is correct. $4,350,000. Yes, go ahead. $4 million? I never approved that.
Yes, me go doctor tomorrow. So me have to get the money today, no longer. Then no me face that. We never make no record or beg nobody no money.
Deepfakes are AI-generated images and videos made to look and sound like people we know and trust. They're used to spread misinformation, destroy reputations, and are used to commit fraud and scams. Don't fall victim to deepfakes. Protect yourself. For more information, visit broadcastingcommission.org or scan the QR code on screen.
Spend Labor Day with Yendi and Tammy. First up, we'll kick back with our internet friends in React. Then we'll get into some Labor Day activities with Honorable Pernell Charles Jr. We'll get some holiday music from the Nah Sell Out My Friend singer. Cargo is in the building and the fun wraps in Free Zone. You've never seen a sunrise quite like this.
Back with us on Lead Story, the Executive Director of CAPRI, Dr. Damian King, is with me, along with the President of the Jamaica Employers Federation, Wayne Chen. Good evening, gentlemen. Welcome back to Lead Story.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Damon, if I may start with you, how should people digest the numbers around poverty prevalence, especially given the big caveat that Dr. Wayne Henry put on the table, that given a change in methodology and other considerations, the numbers must be evaluated with caution?
Okay, I think that's a great place to start, because I want to add two other caveats. One is that you will notice from the chart that the PIOJ had shared that the poverty rate jumps around a lot. That it from when you look at every subsequent measurement, it goes up and down. So you have to be careful how you interpret the change from one measurement to the next, which is usually a 2-year span. You can't overweight that, which is what is being done now. When we say it was 16%, in 2021, in the middle of the pandemic, by the way, and it's 8% now. The second caveat is that you can debate, what is the level of poverty? For most people's estimation, there are plenty of persons who are above this poverty line who are living in poverty. So you can argue that the real poverty rate might be 15% or might be 20%. But the reason why I start with the caveats, all of which are valid, is to say none of those caveats can detract from the fact that poverty is declining unmistakably over the last 20 years. That even with the fluctuations, even with the debate about what is the real incidence of poverty, what you are seeing is an unmistakable trend that almost certainly has cut poverty by less than half over the last 20 years. And that is something that's the important takeaway from the data that has been released.
Wayne Chen, you're a man of music. As I hear Damien King analyze, John Holt comes to my mind. I want a love I can feel. And I'm saying to you, say that to you to ask if those people who say, well, the PIOJ says poverty is declining. I'm still poor. Those around me are still poor. So how can poverty be declining? I'm not feeling the decline.
You're starting with the fallacy of anecdote. But David is absolutely correct. We can argue about year to year, or we can argue about comparative numbers, whether 2 years or so. But has been an unmistakable trend over the last 20 years. Say for a couple of hiccups, we had the global financial crisis of 2008-09, and we had the pandemic of 2020. But I think most Jamaicans are puzzled because when they look around them, and back to anecdote, you see a lot of poor people. There's no doubt. So when they see a number that only 8% of Jamaicans are poor, that is how it is interpreted. We have to first define what are we really measuring here. There's a poverty line. I believe in 2023, the poverty line was set at 60,000 Jamaican dollars per month per month for a family of 4. And the food poverty line, I believe, was set at $36,000 for a family of 4. So we're talking $15,000 per week household income and $9,000 expenditure and $9,000 per week for food. And for many Jamaicans, that would be extreme poverty. So we have to first set a baseline. The second is, what is really causing the decline? Is it squaring with the other numbers? Well, the first number that we know about is the fall in unemployment. So more people are working, because it works both ways. The unemployment rate has fallen and the number of Jamaicans with jobs earning regular incomes has risen over that period. The second number that we look at are the social safety net, the interventions to reduce poverty. And these are targeted payments, targeted benefits that would eliminate the more extreme parts of poverty. The big headline program of the PATH program, back in 2016, 350,000 Jamaicans were receiving PATH benefits. The overall expenditure on PATH was $6 billion. By 2023,
think Wayne's Zoom is glitchy. All right, here's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to take a break and come right back because the technology devil is rearing its ugly head behind the scenes. More on Lead Story after these.
Everybody, I'm Yendi, and this is Odyssey with Yendi. In this space, we connect with some of your favorite people as they share their journeys. Here we have some unfiltered conversations as we deep dive into their inspirations, motivations, and experiences to inspire our own life journey.
Brought to you by Grace. Make a good move today.
In a world where innovation meets tradition, agriculture is evolving like never before. From the latest sustainable farming technologies to age-old practices passed down through generation, agriculture is
precious to me.
I love the animals. I don't mind getting my hands dirty. I love working.
Join us right here on CVM TV every Sunday during news at 7 as we explore the people, the science, and the breakthroughs that are shaping the way we grow, eat, and live. You don't want to miss it. This is Farming Forward.
Back with us here on Lead Story. So we resolved the technology glitches and we can continue. Gentlemen, there are so many things both of you said that we could revisit, but there's also so much more ground to cover. So I'll pick up on the last point. I'll go the last route. Dr. King, here's the thing. Dr. Henry says the economy grew by 0.8% in the quarter prior. Now, it may be a bit haughty of myself and others who think this way, but we seem to not be in a low growth trap as much as we are in a spectacular mansion of low growth that we've built for ourselves, to the extent that when our leaders, people like Dr. Henry and of course those in government, talk about growth and the 0.8%, it's almost as if they're inviting cheers and celebrations, while some of us are curmudgeonly looking at the numbers and say, but we seem to be here running on the treadmill on the spot and wondering why we're running from morning and we've not moved from Papine to halfway tree yet. When you look at these numbers for an economy that is now clear of COVID, recovered from a hurricane, do these numbers give you reason to be optimistic about what our potential is?
Absolutely. You know, all economic statistics are estimates. The economy is a complex organism with literally millions of economic activities taking place over any period of time. And what we are trying to do is take samples all over the place to try to get an estimate of whether that amount of economic activity is expanding or contracting, and how it is affecting people. Now, I'm not disparaging the GDP estimates because Statin is using a standard system of national accounts, similar to what all countries use. But I would suggest that as we are probing different parts of the economy to get a sense of what is going on, that the unemployment rate, the employment numbers, and the poverty statistic is arguably a more accurate measure of what is going on in the economy for the following reason. GDP is more or less accurate when you're talking about what is happening to medium-sized and large businesses especially. And they do make an attempt to pick up what is happening in the micro sector and in small-scale activity. But the methodology there, everywhere, is not one that you can have a lot of confidence in. Whereas the labor force survey covers the entire economy, both formal and informal. And the poverty estimates that come from the Jamaica Survey of Living Conditions also covers the entire economy, both formal and informal. So the fact that poverty has clearly contracted the way it has by this estimate, And the fact that the employment numbers are showing so much activity really gives you a sense that we might be doing better than the GDP estimates are suggesting.
Hear you on that. Wayne Shenton, I like to, in the same way I tell people that when you're evaluating cricketers, batsmen, and their contribution to a team, the simple average that we've all learned to apply, the mean, is a poor estimate of a batsman's productivity. I prefer to look at the mode. What is the most frequent score in a data set that a batsman produces when he goes to the wicket? I say that to say that when I'm looking at unemployment, the thing I'm looking at is not what the unemployment rate is. Yes, that's fine. But I'm more interested in what the labor participation rate is. And when I look at Jamaica's labor participation rate, it is higher than most of our Caribbean counterparts, perhaps only behind Bahamas. And it is higher than many of the countries further afield that we compare ourselves to.
I'm sorry, George. That is not true.
Which one?
That is not true.
Go again?
If you look at Capri's report,
yes,
called Outside In,
yes,
which looks specifically at labor participation rates and compares it around the world.
Yes.
Jamaica's labor participation rate is average on a global scale and has actually increased in recent years. So I need to correct that statistic and direct it to Capri's report. Outside In, it's on our website.
All right. So just to clarify further, it is where our CARICOM partners are concerned, is it not one of the highest? No.
Yes, but
okay.
I'm telling you the relevant.
Yeah, man. I'm taking that. But I just wanted to clarify that my thought about where it is in CARICOM and relative to some select countries outside is, as I've said, even though you've said the fine data and what it precisely says is in the Capri report, no problem, I'll take that on board. It doesn't interfere with the point I'm making to you, Wayne Chen, that the labor participation rate aligned with the poverty prevalence, as Damien King just articulated, alongside what the GDP number says. Do the employers, those who employ labor and who pay a salary to people at the end of a period, do they believe that they're operating in an economy that is in line with what the key statistical indicators suggest?
It's a qualified yes. We have seen in recent times a raise in the real minimum wage, and there is a shortage of workers willing to accept the minimum wage, even as the unemployment numbers are falling and the employment numbers are rising. But there are other statistics we look at to follow up on Damien's point. And unfortunately, some of these statistics are hard to get. Things like electricity consumption, which ought to be really one of the things we look at. Electricity consumption has risen more quickly in recent times than the GDP. If we look at the number of vehicles on the road in Jamaica, the actual numbers of vehicles on the road has risen in recent times. So there are consumption patterns. The anecdote around cement shortages, but the sale of cement in Jamaica, these are indices that I would use also to say as an index of economic activity outside of the GDP numbers. And I would say that when you take it all into consideration, one, the fall in the downward trajectory in the poverty rate is not unsurprising. It aligns with the other trends that we monitor. And two, it also speaks to the fact that the GDP growth does not capture all economic. And certainly we in Jamaica have a long history of high GDP numbers rising with high unemployment numbers. We saw that in the 1960s when immigration to the UK stopped, but it coincided with a period of great expansion in the bauxite alumina industry and the tourism sector. So unemployment numbers ran up to over 20% by the end of the 1970s. Coincidentally, at the end of the 1960s, at a time when Jamaica was seeing double-digit growth in GDP. So the buzz phrase now is inclusive economic growth, and I think we are much more focused on that. No doubt you have to have strong overall and sustained overall GDP growth, but the focus on inclusivity and the focus on creating a robust social safety net so people don't fall into extreme poverty has to be the policy focus of governments going forward. And we are seeing the outcome of that. We are building the platform for our strong economic growth, We're building up, I will also call, a governance model with a more inclusive governance model with some emphasis on social dialogue.
Yeah.
And we have seen the success of that model.
Yeah.
And we are seeing the benefits. Will stronger growth come? Other big decisions will have to be made in the near future.
Hear you on that. And I'm out of time, but I have to go give them in the last question. So for this country and its economy, that the two major political parties will fight over not too long from now to lead for another 5-year cycle, is the prize an economy that is going somewhere positive based on these numbers?
I think what Jamaica has accomplished in putting in place an economic platform that is poised for economic growth, I would say that, and you're taking this all the way back to the first IMF program starting in 2013, the one that followed it, and everything that has happened since then, I would say Jamaica, the risky international environment notwithstanding, just leaving that aside, but certainly in terms of what we could have done domestically in terms of economic policy, we have put ourselves in the best position to sustain economic growth than we've been in since independence.
Excellent. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Damien King. Thank you, Winch, and all the best to you, gentlemen.
Pleasure.
That's my time here on Lead Story on this Thursday. We break for the news at 7.